Yeah, I've been ripping some planks here, and somebody had asked in the comments, that I kind of give a verdict on these ripping chains. And I have to say, they work much better for, cutting these planks. Partly, it's got to do with the angle on the end of the cutter. The ripping chain, so this is a regular chain, this is a ripping chain. The regular chain runs at about this much of an angle. The ripping chain is much closer to being straight across. It's kind of chipping away. And I think it has a little more bite to it. I think that's why this is an Oregon chain, but a lot of chains, ripping chains, won't have they'll have spaces further between the links because it takes a lot more power. Now I'm running that PowerMate sprocket, so I've got it geared down anyway, so it doesn't really affect me, but I'd have to say it cuts really well, cuts really clean. You can cut a thinner board. I don't have to plane off so much. Otherwise you get a lot of wastage on them, and it cuts with much less effort. And I got a couple of these ripping chains. I bought them off of eBay. And I'll put the name of the seller in there because he sells a lot of chainsaw stuff, including those PowerMate sprockets. But I've been pleased with it. Just takes a lot less effort to do the cutting. Now you can see the planks I've been making today. Normally I'm cutting like a 2-inch plank, but these I got a project I want to use a 1/2 inch. So I cut them like a 3/4 and then I'll plane them down. But it cuts so much smoother than what it does using that regular chain, and with so much less effort. It's really very impressive. Just, I don't know how well it'll show up, but this is cut, well, even here, this is cut with a rip chain. The slab was cut with the regular chain. Now you can see the regular chain, there's a lot of irregularities in it that will have to be planed out. This will take much less planing. It just cuts much easier. And I think part of the problem with the regular chain, they aren't taking quite as much bite. So the end of the cutter kind of gets turned down a little bit. And it gets, I think, rather hot. And so the chain actually looks good, but it'll be dull. They don't last long, a regular chain, doing this, and then pretty soon it's a lot of work to run them through. But these chains, I've cut, well, these, there'll be 4 cuts I've made. And there's no slowing down in it, it just keeps cutting. And this is good solid ash. But I'm pretty impressed with them. So they cost a little bit more than the regular chain, but for this, specialized purpose, they work very well. And they are, like I said, they're an Oregon chain. But they are a rip chain. And I'll put the name of the guy who on eBay was selling them. But you do have to know your information, of what your bar width and all that stuff, and how many links. See, that's the problem. I never used a rip chain before because I could never find it in my size. I had to buy a whole roll of chain. Well, I didn't want to buy a whole roll of chain for the amount of work that I do. So I always use regular chains, but I wish I'd have used these before. Would have saved a lot of effort, a lot of sore backs. But works very well. It takes the same size file as my regular chain. But see, mine was odd because I switched stuff around to run the Power Mates sprocket. So I ended up with a 72 link chain. And see, now there's the thing too. I've been running this chain and I haven't had to tighten it up at all. You know, it just works much better. So yeah, I would definitely recommend them. Wish I would have found this guy sooner. But he's got a lot of different sizes for the... No, I think this is actually the same one as it runs on a steel, though a steel might be a 70 link, I'm not sure, on a 20 inch. You know, so you do have to know your information, but if you can figure out what you need, that Oregon rip chain is a hell of a chain. But back to work. I got a special project in mind for these. Yeah, see, they're just, when I cut them down, so I got a foot, so I'll square up the edges, that'll give me a foot by a ½ inch. But that project, it'll be a long term, so someday you'll get a half-hour video on making that. But I just, the one guy was curious about those rip chains. What my opinion is, hell of a deal. They just make such a nicer cut, and without the effort. You know, because with that regular chain that I have used for many, many years, they're kind of a bear. It wears you out. So if it's wearing you out, it's probably wearing the saw out. And like I say, the chain wouldn't last that long. Now these, they seem to last.